Check this.
In the deep ocean, the rules of survival are incredibly simple. You don't survive by being smart. You survive by being big and dangerous. And this is a sperm whale, which is exactly that. A big, dangerous whale. It is the largest toothed predator on the entire planet. It dives thousands of meters into the abyss just to rip apart giant 500-pound squids. They aren't gentle giants, but despite what many people think, these whales aren't mindless brutes either. In fact, they are some of, if not arguably, the smartest creatures in the entire ocean. In fact, scientists estimate that these whales are so smart that they possess nearly the exact same level of cognitive intelligence as a 5-year-old human child. But why does an animal that spends its entire life brawling in the pitch black need to be this smart? And what can a being that's 60,000 pounds and also intelligent actually do? To understand how smart a sperm whale is, you first have to listen to them. Sperm whales communicate using a series of clicks, and for a long time, humans just assumed that these clicks were basic animal noises, like a dog barking or a bird chirping. Just generic sounds meant to say, I'm over here, or there's food over there. But when marine biologists actually started recording and isolating these clicks, they realized something insane. These whales have names. When two sperm whales meet, they don't just make random noises. They use highly specific clicking patterns called coders. Every single sperm whale has its own unique coder that it uses to identify itself to the rest of the pod. Imagine walking into a room of your friends and just saying your own name out loud so everyone knows exactly who just arrived. Which, if a human did that, would be incredibly weird. But for sperm whales, that's exactly what they do. And they don't just know their own names. They remember the specific names of their family members and friends, even if they haven't seen them for years. They'll call out to specific individuals in the dark, waiting for that exact individual to click back. Having a concept of personal identity understanding that I'm me and you're you is a massive benchmark for intelligence. Most animals on Earth completely fail this test, but sperm whales do it every single day. But to actually possess the concept of an identity, you need the physical hardware to back it up. Usually, when we think of the biggest animals in the ocean, we immediately think of the blue whale. And yes, the blue whale is the largest animal to ever exist. They can reach up to 100 feet long and weigh over 150 tons. But having a massive body doesn't automatically mean you get a massive brain. The blue whale's brain is definitely big, but relative to its body size, it's mostly just built to keep it alive. The sperm whale, on the other hand, is less than half the size of a blue whale, but its brain is heavier. In fact, the sperm whale has the largest and heaviest brain of any known animal in the history of Earth, weighing in at around 17 pounds, which is basically like carrying a bowling ball inside your skull. But obviously, just having a heavy brain doesn't make you a genius. If that brain is just full of useless tissue, it doesn't matter how much it weighs. But the sperm whale's brain isn't just big, it's incredibly complex. They have a massive neocortex, which is the exact same part of the human brain that's responsible for conscious thought, future planning, sensory perception, and language. Their brain is literally wired to process high-level thoughts. They're actively thinking, they're analyzing. But being smart is one thing. Actually caring about things is completely different. For a very long time, scientists believed that humans and great apes were completely unique in the animal kingdom because of a specific type of brain cell called a spindle neuron. Spindle neurons are essentially the cells that allow us to feel complex emotions. They're the reason we feel love. They're the reason we feel empathy for others. And they're the reason we feel crushing grief when someone we care about dies. Turns out, we aren't that special. When they looked inside the brain of a sperm whale, not only did they have spindle neurons, but they actually have significantly more of them than we do. Their brains are literally hardwired for complex social behavior and emotional intelligence. They actually have the physical capacity to think, feel, and organize. When a sperm whale calf is born, the entire pod celebrates. When a member of their family dies, they mourn. They have been observed physically supporting the bodies of dead calves at the surface for days, refusing to let them sink. They feel attachment and they feel loss. And because their brains are so heavily equipped with these empathy cells, their emotional capacity might actually rival or even exceed that of a human toddler. So they have feelings. Cool. But what happens when you put thousands of highly emotional, highly intelligent animals in the same ocean? When humans gather in large groups over long periods of time, we form cultures. We develop specific languages, specific behaviors, and specific rules for who belongs in our group and who doesn't. And sperm whales do the exact same thing. Sperm whales are divided into massive societies called clans, and these clans can consist of thousands of whales spread out across thousands of miles of ocean. But the crazy part is how they identify who belongs to which clan. Remember those clicking coders they use for names? Well, researchers discovered that different clans actually have completely different dialects. A whale from a clan in the Pacific Ocean clicks with a completely different rhythm and tempo than a whale from a clan in the Atlantic. And amazingly, this happens even when two completely different clans cross paths in the exact same stretch of water. They're swimming in the same ocean, eating the same food, and living the exact same lifestyle. But if a whale from clan A hears a whale from clan B clicking with a different accent, they'll completely ignore them. They're basically just swimming past each other going,
"Ugh, did you hear that guy's accent? No thanks."
They refuse to interact, they refuse to socialize, and they absolutely refuse to mate with whales that speak differently than they do. They're basically dividing themselves up entirely based on language. But having an accent means there has to be an actual language they're speaking in the first place. So, what are they actually saying? For decades, we knew sperm whales were communicating, but we had absolutely no idea how complex it was. We just assumed it was a basic code. But recently, scientists used advanced AI specifically designed to analyze thousands of hours of sperm whale clicks. And what the AI found completely changed how we look at animal communication. Sperm whale clicks are actually a phonetic alphabet. They actually use context, rhythm, and structural grammar. By slightly altering the space between clicks, or adding extra ornamental clicks to the end of a sequence, they can completely change the meaning of what they're saying. They can combine these sounds to express complex ideas, coordinate movements, and share information across the entire ocean. They're literally just talking. So they have names, they have feelings, and they have an alphabet. But why? Evolution doesn't just hand out 17-pound brains for fun. Brains require a massive amount of energy to run. If an animal has a brain this powerful, it's because their survival absolutely depends on it. Sperm whales hunt in the midnight zone. This is a layer of the ocean so deep that absolutely zero sunlight can reach it. It's just a freezing, empty void. If you or I went down there, and I know you Beyond the Blue viewers are pretty tough, but we'd be completely blind. Well, and also instantly crushed, but mostly blind. But sperm whales need to find food down there. So they use echolocation. They send out incredibly loud clicks, actually the loudest sound produced by any animal on Earth, and wait for these sound waves to bounce off objects and return to them. But to actually hunt using sound, the whale's brain has to instantly calculate the exact time it takes for the echo to return, the exact angle it bounced back from, and the exact density of the object it hit. They're essentially taking raw audio data and using it to render a 3D map of the ocean inside their heads, in real time. Think about how much computer RAM it takes to render a 3D video game environment. Now imagine a biological brain doing that constantly, in total darkness, while holding its breath under crushing pressure. My computer crashes if I just open too many Chrome tabs. That's why their brains are so massive. Their intelligence basically started because they had to figure out how to see using only math and sound. But what exactly are they looking for? When a sperm whale dives into the abyss, it's usually looking for one thing: the giant squid. And this is where all that brain power actually comes into play. Giant squids are massive, incredibly fast, and are covered in hooked tentacles that look like... yeah, you do not want to get grabbed by that. But more importantly, they're perfectly adapted to the dark. They have the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, designed to pick up even the faintest traces of bioluminescence. If a sperm whale just swam around blindly snapping its jaws, it would never catch one. It would just look like an idiot. So, the hunt becomes a dead silent waiting game. The whale uses its echolocation to scan the darkness, but the squid is highly sensitive to water pressure and vibrations. If the whale moves too fast, the squid will feel it and vanish. So the whale has to use its brain. It controls its breathing, slows its heart rate, and maps out the squid's exact location using sound. It figures out exactly where the squid is going and strikes in total darkness. They use their minds to outmaneuver the most dangerous prey in the ocean. But when you're spending hours in the deep hunting squids, what happens to your kids? Sperm whales are mammals, which means they have to breathe air. An adult sperm whale can hold its breath for over an hour and dive thousands of meters down. But a newborn calf simply doesn't have the lung capacity to do that. They have to stay near the surface. And in the open ocean, leaving a baby alone at the surface means a passing pod of orcas is probably going to eat it. So, the sperm whales use their intelligence to solve this problem. Because they live in such organised societies, they actually take shifts. While a mother dives down to hunt, other adult females in a pod will stay at the surface and babysit the calf. If a pod of orcas actually does show up to attack the baby, the sperm whales execute a coordinated defense tactic called the Marguerite Formation. The adults will form a tight circle with the calves in the very centre. The adults point their massive tails outwards, creating a literal wall of thrashing muscle. Orcas are smart, but they aren't stupid enough to swim directly into a dozen 40-ton tails swinging at full speed, because that would hurt a lot. Because the sperm whales are smart enough to care for their young and communicate with each other, they figured out exactly how to defend themselves. So they can outsmart orcas. But could they ever outsmart us? During the 1800s, commercial whaling was a massive global industry. Humans would sail out into the open ocean on large, wind-powered ships, track down sperm whales, and hunt them using harpoons. In the beginning, the humans were winning easily. When a whaling ship approached, a sperm whale's natural instinct was to form that defensive circle we just talked about. But a defensive circle works against orcas. It doesn't work against a human throwing a metal spear. By grouping up and staying still, the whales were basically just making themselves easier targets. But then, something incredible happened. Within just a few years, the success rate of human whalers plummeted by over 50%. The whales realised that the defensive circle was a death trap, so they completely changed their strategy. When a whaling ship approached, the whales would immediately turn and swim upwind. They figured out that the human ships relied entirely on the wind to move. If the whales swam against the wind, the ships physically couldn't follow them. But here's the craziest part. The whales actually communicated this danger to each other. Pods that had never even seen a human whaling ship suddenly started swimming upwind the moment they encountered one. They figured out how human ships worked, came up with a counter strategy, and then taught it to each other across entire oceans. They literally outsmarted 19th century humans. But obviously, there's a limit to all this. When we say a sperm whale has the mind of a 5-year-old, it's really easy to accidentally drift into sci-fi territory. We start picturing them doing underwater math or plotting to take over the ocean. But we have to ground this in reality. Sperm whales are incredibly smart, but they're still wild animals. And more importantly, they're bound by their physical bodies. Humans became the dominant species on Earth because our brains are attached to hands with opposable thumbs. We can pick things up, we can build tools, we can create fire. A sperm whale has flippers. Even if a sperm whale understood the concept of a tool, it physically cannot build one. Even if it understood the concept of fire, it lives underwater, which makes starting a campfire a bit tricky. They're incredibly smart, but all of that brainpower is entirely dedicated to just surviving. It's used for navigating the ocean, keeping their pods together, and hunting squids. They aren't building cities because they physically can't. But this massive brain does come with a pretty fatal flaw. Usually, being this empathetic is a massive advantage in the wild. It keeps your family alive. But for sperm whales, their greatest strength is actually the exact thing that can lead to their collective doom. Because their social bonds are so incredibly strong, they refuse to abandon each other. If a member of the pod gets sick, gets disorientated, or accidentally swims into shallow water and strands itself on a beach, the rest of the pod won't leave them. The healthy whales will hear the distress clicks of their family member, and their empathy kicks in. They'll swim directly into the exact same dangerous shallow water just to stay by their side. This leads to massive beach strandings where dozens of perfectly healthy whales will slowly die on the sand, simply because their emotional attachment to their family was stronger than their own instinct to, well, live. For a reptile, or for a fish, this would never happen. If a fish gets stuck, the other fish just keep swimming. They're just like, well, sucks to be Bob, and moves on. But for a sperm whale, empathy actually just gets them killed. But what if we could actually warn them? Right now, scientists are using advanced AI models to decode the entire sperm whale alphabet, and the ultimate goal is to eventually broadcast messages back to them. But this raises a really interesting point. If we actually crack the code, and we build a machine that can perfectly replicate sperm whale clicks, what would a conversation with a 40-ton, 5-year-old alien even look like? What do you even say? Hey, sorry about all the plastic. We could theoretically warn them about approaching cargo ships or tell them where a massive school of squid is located. But would they even care? To a sperm whale, humans are just weird, loud things that float on the surface and occasionally drop garbage into their home. Our entire world of politics, technology, and land-based problems means absolutely nothing to them. If we finally bridge the communication gap, we might realize that we simply have nothing in common to talk about. Because when you really think about it, humans have a really bad habit of judging animal intelligence based entirely on how closely they act like us. If a monkey uses a stick to get ants, we call it a genius. If a bird solves a puzzle to get a peanut, we're amazed. We usually just measure intelligence by an animal's ability to physically build things. But sperm whales force us to completely reframe what it means to be smart. If you weigh 40 tons, have no hands, live in a world of crushing darkness, and your voice can naturally travel across entire oceans, intelligence just looks completely different. You don't need to build a spaceship. You don't need to invent the wheel. You just need a brain powerful enough to map the abyss, remember the names of your family members for decades, and outsmart the monsters hiding in the dark. Sperm whales are the closest thing to a highly intelligent alien species we'll ever encounter, and they have been swimming right beneath us the entire time. But anyways, even if we do eventually figure out how to talk to them, I just hope they don't hold a grudge about the whole 1800s whaling thing. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please keep leaving your suggestions in the comments for future videos, because I do actually read them. And if you want to see our full video about the giant squids that are always fighting down there in the dark, check it out here. And if you haven't checked out my second channel yet, Beyond the Green, make sure to give that a look too if you want to see similar stuff just outside the water.